So you're thinking of taking up painting, or maybe you're moving on from watercolour, but can't decide whether to go for oils or acrylics. In this video, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of each to help you make a decision. So let's jump right into it, and I'm going to start with acrylics. When I started making a list of the benefits of oils and acrylics, the list for acrylics was much longer than the one for oil paints. Now, does that mean that I prefer acrylics? It doesn't. But it's kind of easier to quantify the benefits of acrylic. I think firstly, the thing that I should mention is that, of course, acrylics are water-based, which means that pretty much they're odour-free, which can be a great advantage, particularly if you don't have a dedicated studio, and also they're easy to clean. So that can be a major plus point. I think it's worth mentioning that unlike watercolours, once acrylics dry, they are no longer water soluble. So if you leave a brush out with paint on it, it's going to go solid. So acrylics come in all kinds of formats. The paint can be thick or thin. You can get acrylic inks, which are really useful for working quickly outdoors. And pens, this is an acrylic pen. So that, you can draw with that. It's just a very versatile medium. One thing I really like is they make a great glue. So you can stick all kinds of things to the surface. I sometimes stick hessian, paper, cloth, grasses and flowers and things from outside. And also things just get stuck to the surface of it when you're working outside, and I rather like that. I like that it's kind of interacting with the land around you. So they're great fun. You can mix it really thinly and pour the stuff over the canvas. You can mix it really thickly and build up an impasto. And there are all kinds of mediums you can get to thicken the paint and indeed thin it. Acrylic also lends itself to thin-washed, hard-edged techniques, which are not necessarily suited to oil paints. One of the great things is their speed of drying, but this can also cause problems, and particularly in hot weather. If you're painting outside, the paint can dry really quickly. It dries on the palette and of course on the canvas or board. And this can be problematic, but you've kind of got to embrace the speed of drying. It's not something that comes as a surprise. You know it's going to happen, so you plan for that and paint accordingly. This for me is where working in acrylic really comes into its own. It's going to dry fast on a day like this because it's very warm, but I can work with that, that's not a problem. And I don't really need much equipment. I haven't even got an easel today. I've got one bag, so I can travel fairly light. Just pop myself down wherever I feel like. It's really lovely. I've walked a bit, this isn't the hardest job in the world, is it? Time is my only escape. And working like this means that I can do maybe, 2 or 3 sketches if I want to, and then take them back to the studio. I can work on them in oil. I can work on top of acrylic in oil if I want to, or I can simply use this as a study and then turn it into a big canvas later. But it just kind of gives me that flexibility. And also, as I said, I can use crayons on this. I can use these little inks, which work really well. You can kind of draw with them. They're just great things. And that's acrylic ink. You can work on most surfaces with acrylic: paper, cardboard, board. This is backing board from picture framing, so it's acid free, and I've primed it twice, and it's perfect really. You can cut it to any size you want. You can cut it with a modelling knife, so it's easy to use, and it packs away flat obviously, so this is the ideal. But you can work on canvas, of course. starting off really loose with this. It's the best way to go. If you start drawing too early, you're going to tie yourself down and make life difficult for yourself. So I'm just letting this paint run and do whatever it wants to do, and then I'll start to tie it down later. But I think I'm just going to get some sense of those where the field kind of and the trees are over in the distance over here. There's quite a lot of green down this side actually. I don't for one moment wanted you to think that you couldn't do this in oils, because of course you can, and generations of artists have worked outside with oils, and that's absolutely fine, and it's a lovely way to work. But just for the sheer ease of it and the simplicity of it, acrylic works so well for this. So when you're thinking about which material you want to use, think about how you're going to use it. Do you think you're going to be working plein air, or do you think you're going to be working in the studio? Do you have plenty of room in the studio? Can you leave your paints up, or do you have to pack them away every time? Because packing away wet oil paints is, you need space for it. Whereas acrylics, this will be dry in 5 minutes, probably less, in this heat. So that's something to bear in mind when you're deciding which materials you're going to use. So as I said, typically I'll work outside, maybe on a piece of board as I was earlier, and then bring it back into the studio and work in oil on canvas. Right, so on to oils. After all I've said about the benefits of acrylic, oil still remains my favourite medium. Now, just as with acrylics, you can paint on all kinds of surfaces with oil paint. But a good place to start is, you can buy these canvas boards anyway. It's got a canvas surface on one side, and you can buy these really cheaply. They're great things to start with. But you can also buy ready primed canvases such as this. They're also pretty cheap. They're pretty much you could throw away if you want to, or you can scrape off and paint on them again. Great place to start with your painting. You can stretch your own canvases, of course, and prime them, and that's what I do. But it's not necessary to begin with. The great beauty of oils is the depth of colour that you can get. They are unmatched in the lustrousness of the colour and the beautiful buttery quality of the paint. Delightful to use, and it is, as I say, my favourite medium. And of course, painting plein air has a long history. It is a little more messy than painting with acrylic. In terms of thinning the paint, I tend to use turpentine, but there are lots of odour-free products on the market that you can use instead. Working with oil paints is undoubtedly where I'm happiest. And even if you decide that you want to work with acrylics to start with, I do urge you at some point to give oil paints a go. The luscious colours you can get are just so exciting. And when you're working in oil, you're following in the footsteps of Rembrandt, Paul Cézanne, Picasso, Lucien Freud, Frank Auerbach. You know, the list goes on, and there's a real beauty in that. Okay, so just how easy is this oil painting business? You saw me working earlier with acrylics and using water as the solvent. Now we're going to work with oil paint. So here is the canvas board that I showed you earlier. We're going to use that, and this is going to be really simple. In this slightly grubby little pot, I'm going to pour some turpentine. Don't need very much. And that's a solvent. That comes instead of the water for the acrylics. We need a brush and a little bit of paint. Let's use this lemon yellow. Going to put a little bit of cobalt blue in that to make a nice green. There we go. Now, I can paint this straight onto the canvas as it is, or I can use a little bit of solvent and that will thin it slightly. Ooh, nice. Now comes the tricky part. What I'm going to do now is put the paint on the canvas board. There, that's oil painting. You can make it more complicated, of course you can, but that's the basis of oil painting. It is so simple. You can thin it a little bit more with some more turpentine, and it will do some lovely runs down the canvas like that. Or you can add some more colour to it, some more blue there. And that really is the basis of oil painting. What happens next is miraculous. There you go. Told you it was easy. Okay, so that last bit was just a bit of fun. But the principle remains the same. It's just about getting some paint, getting a support and putting the paint on the support and enjoying it. If you've enjoyed it, please click the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It's free. If you do that, click the little bell icon and that will let you know every time I upload a new video.